I work with Plotworld Realtors. Max-Migold has done a great job at lecturing us on facility management training, fundamentals, and specific core competencies in facility management. I really love it because it helped me improve myself better despite what I've known. There are still new developments, still new processes. I work with Plotworld Realtors. Max-Migold has Yes, Paul Erubami, I've known him for a while now, and he has so much about it. We've been here since morning and we are still receiving and we don't want to go home. I think this training is profitable for everyone who is ready to grow a career in facility management. Thank you very much.
The very first day in class was, my God, wow, the knowledge, everything in the class was just wow. That's all I can say. And today, I've been to different interviews. I've done very well, I've represented very well, and I've worked in one or two organizations. Currently, where I worked, I just joined them this December, and they just made me the head of facilities. Number one was that when I came, there wasn't system at all. Nothing like PPM. They always break down of, service and all of that. So first thing I came, I took the stock. I do a PPM, I create an asset register. They were like, what's going on? So I created the system, all to the knowledge I gained through this institution.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hajia Zainab Saleh, and I'm the Managing Director of Brains and Hammers Facility Management Limited and White Oak Management Services Limited. Both are facilities management companies. Not too long ago, I decided to enroll my staff in a masterclass program organized by Max-Migold Limited. For some of us that are not aware, Max-Migold Limited is a physical facilities management, training, inspection, technology advisory firm. Now, I've known them for quite some time, and I chose, not too long ago, to put my staff through a training program under Max-Migold. And I can assure you that it was worth it. Why do I say that? What value has it brought to me? Or what value has it brought to my staff and to the organization generally? I can assure you there was a change. Why do I say that? Their mindset has begun to change. The way they look at attending to activities and tasks that have been given to them have changed. I even hear it in their conversations. And when you hear my staff discussing about tasks or projects that have been given to them to execute, you hear them saying, oh no, I remember in class they told me not to do this. Let's do it this way, and let's see how it's going to affect the work at the end of the day. The long and short of all what I'm trying to say to you is that if you have an opportunity to send your staff or yourself to Max-Migold, please do it, because it is worth it. And I can assure you that you will see positive changes in your staff, and which will eventually impact in your organization. Do go ahead, work with Max-Migold. You will definitely get what it is you're looking for. Have a lovely day.
We have a lot of courses actually, but I have two that are more interesting to me, like procurement management and facility maintenance strategies. Procurement management, it exposes us to so many things about procurement, the difference between procurement and purchase, all that you need to do to abide by the ethics of procurement standard, everything that I need to succeed as an FM, in procurement. And at the same time, maintenance, facility strategic maintenance is one of the 8 things as an FM that really, puts you at that top, that will really make people appreciate and respect you. The excellence of facility, maintenance strategy, the whole essence and objective is to save costs. Is to ensure that the operations of that organization keep running. That's the whole essence of facility operation maintenance. And in those, we have a lot of processes, the strategies to apply. Like for example, we have talked about the reactive slash run to fail maintenance plan. Talk about the preventive maintenance plan and the predictive maintenance plan. So as an FM, I think for it to be top notch, for it to be at the top of your peak, and to be respected in your discipline, you need to understand the 3 modules that I just mentioned earlier. The reactive, some of what's equivalent or whatever that you allow to be reactive, and the kind of preventive measure you deploy in the process and everything. So for me, it has been a resourceful and expository times in Max-Migold.
Good day, everyone. My name is Aliba Sobo, and facilities manager with Landmark Africa. And before now, I used to be facility manager with my church university headquarters. I used to be facility manager traditionally before I saw the need to upgrade myself to world-class facility manager. Then I did my research and I got Max-Migold as the preferred trainer for that purpose, which I attended training for 9 months. The 9 months, 3 months was in class, and 6 months was on the field to do our project. And he saw me through to Lagos Business School, which I did my 6 month project there. Gathered a lot of experiences. I saw the value increase in me. So he saw me through to other places like real estate companies, and I worked there for a while before I came to Africa, which practically I felt it that my value increased because of the training experience from last week. Anytime for everybody bringing up this training that has seen world-class facility managers emerged because of his leadership and the quality of the training.
Hello everyone, good morning. My name is Anayo Onwaboa Victor. I'm a facility manager in one of the oil and gas servicing firm in Lagos, Nigeria. I just want to tell you how my career has been ever enrolling in the FM Masterclass with Max-Migold. It's been awesome, one quantum leap to another. As in, when I started as in early last year in February or so, I couldn't wait to put everything I've learned into action. Although I've been learning FM before, but coming to Max-Migold, there's a distinctive knowledge you're going to learn about FM that if you benchmark it to the best practices in every company, you're going to be on the top. Seriously. I carried out a facility condition assessment for where I was working before in an estate I managed. I did my facility maintenance planning and record. I also went as far as doing a more advanced PPM, apart from what they are doing with the experience and knowledge I got from Max-Migold. In fact, right now, I don't know if there's any equipment or facility that I don't understand. Because of the tutelage I received from Max-Migold, you don't just learn from there, you also maintain relationship from there. Even when you run into problems, advices come around. But what am I trying to tell you? My career has grown. Even before I left my former place of work, my salary was increased. And early this year, I got this offer. And when negotiating, I negotiated twice of my salary. Yes, you heard me. I'm being paid twice of my former salary in my company. I am the facility manager right now. I give advice, innovative
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for making out time to join me in today's episode of the FM Launch Hour. My name is Paul Erubami. I'm the MD of Max-Migold Limited, head of faculty of the Max-Migold Training Center. And I come today to present the last episode for 2025. In the next week, or in fact, the next 2 weeks, we'll be taking a break. And the next time we'll have the launch hour with another exciting topic will be on the 8th, Thursday, the 8th of January. So let's enjoy today and have a good holiday and look forward to a fantastic time with our next episode on the 8th of January. And that episode, it will be a very hot topic, but I probably wouldn't be the one taking the session because of other engagements. So I'm going to start the year hot with an exciting topic, but we may be having another faculty member present something specialized to their areas of specialization. So with that being said, I would like to, with all excitement and satisfaction from the outcomes, announce that we had our graduation ceremony for the class of 2025 last week, Saturday, and it was fantastic. It was exciting. If you weren't able to participate, we have the video, we have photo gallery that we're pushing out, and see how much fun it was for all those who did. 96 people graduated, and that was fantastic for our program. Okay, and on that day, we made a special offer to those in the room and the people they know in their network. It's a 300,000 Naira discount that runs through the month of December for full payments. So it's a flash sale opportunity for anyone who knows anyone who will benefit from career enhancements or advancements through the FM Mastercraft Diploma to pay now and save off 300,000, whether it's physical or virtual. This is the only time that Bonanza will run. So pay attention and please spread the word so that those you know they will take advantage of this special offer. Okay, so that being said, I would like to get straight into today's launch hour. Built to code, understand the structural safe requirements in modern FM. When we take over buildings to manage, 90% of the time, we don't have a say in what was designed. And in many instances, we don't even have any significant inputs during the construction. So we're handed over the buildings, and we then now need to conduct certain assessments to confirm that the building was built to code. But for you to know what to assess, the parameters and the ranges to expect for whatever structure has been built to code, you need to understand the building code. So that's the first thing I would like to say. Facility managers need to be abreast of the provisions of the Nigerian Building Code. So if you don't have a copy of the Nigerian Building Code, I'll just say go online. 2016 edition is still the most current and most valid. Download it, about 150 pages, 3 MB download, and then read through, okay? Because that's the first thing that shows that you know what you're doing when you're taking over a new building, to be able to say, these are the requirements that we should meet, that should have been met to do that assessment. It's not something you can do entirely on your own. You can do snag listing, observation, picking up visual defects here and there. But then much of it will need to be done by experts in MEP, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, to test fire systems, to test power and security systems, and then you will need to have a structural engineer who knows how to conduct structural tests and so on and so forth. So that's basically where they start from. As an FM, know what is appropriate. When a test or a result shows when it comes to compliance. Statutory compliance is the minimum level at which you can operate. So if you have parameters falling below that minimum level, it means you as a professional facility manager can't be found on that project. So we're talking about building codes, structural systems, how to identify risk, managing alterations. This is where we come in, because many of us take over old buildings and the client wants that and that modified. And the easier thing to do is just go ahead and start breaking and putting new walls and taking away walls and so on and so forth. There's a procedure for going through with alterations, remodeling, renovations, so that you do not create a problem for the structure, because you are deviating or changing from its original design. No matter how long it has lasted, if you don't know how to plan the alterations, you might be creating more problem. And then, of course, how to prevent incidents, and how to ensure that there's an attitude of safety or safety consciousness within the team, both the construction team and the FM team. So as a facility manager, first things first, if you take over a facility, you are not just assuming responsibility for the physical building, its structure, its assets, its fixtures and fittings. You are taking responsibility for the people who occupy that facility. You are taking responsibility for the activities they will conduct inside that facility. You are taking responsibility for their safety, security, and well-being. It's a huge responsibility that you cannot take lightly. So it's not under our watch that a building that we're managing will be found to be unstable, right? So because we are responsible for the safety of occupants, we want to ensure that a facility does not collapse under our watch. A facility does not need to look like it is shaky, it is all cracked up before you create a validation, a documented evidence that the building is safe structurally. What am I saying? It is possible for a building to look perfectly okay, looking clean and no cracks, and yet still have a problem. So while you trust the builders have built well, validate through a structural test. Very key. The other aspect to this is when structures are put up, you need to carry out certain routine maintenance activities, which means you and your team need to have access to certain parts. You need to have crawl spaces, manholes and chambers, tunnels, whatever it is that is built in to grant that kind of access to check, inspect, fix, maintain as you manage the building. If you take over a structure and you realize that those things were not put in place, an immediate alteration needs to happen. For example, there are some facilities where armored cables run from top to bottom, embedded in a concrete pillar with points of inspection. If there's a power issue with that cable, you can't really apply any fix. You can't assess the points where that issue is happening. You have to, create another cable completely on the side or somewhere where you'll be able to have access at different floors. And so many things. Same goes with piping. Same goes with network and data cables and the rest. So we need to be very conscious of what has been built. So as facility managers, access is very important. And there are so many things that you need to consider. The other part is there are certain assumptions that were made in calculating the dead and live loads requirements for the structures that have been built. If a wall is being built, if a floor is being built, a roof slab is being built, there are certain calculations that they're using to prescribe how much reinforcement, what grade of concrete, how it will be cured, and the strength that should be eventually achieved if a test is conducted on it. Now, if while occupying it, those assumptions are not understood by you, the facility manager, are not complied with because probably you didn't convey it to the residents. Take, for example, you have a residential, and the assumption is that in a 3-bedroom flat, there will be not more than 10 occupants. Plus, they will not be operating what are the heavy machines, machines for manufacturing machines in this high rise. You have a 20-story building. You don't expect somebody who took a flat in floor 10 or 11 to ship up vibrating equipment and start doing production of whatever in there. You cannot ignore those. And that's why you see landlords who insist on, tell us what you want to do with the house you are renting, for example. Not after you paid rent, you say, oh, it's my apartment, I can do anything I like with it. No, facility managers cannot play under such conditions. The loads have to be understood. Somebody comes into that estate, takes a studio or loft and loads in 10 people in there. And they're mostly around, they're having, busy activities on a regular basis. Even some kind of music and speakers that creates vibration can be a problem for the building. Some start pounding pounded yam and fufu and the rest inside the building. You need to understand what has been provided for. So you go back and refer to the calculations done during a design, and then you do the tests, structural test now that validates the strength of all of those structural members. So that's the core thing to do first. Why is compliance critical? So safety and asset protection. It ensures that the buildings meet minimum safety standards. Like I always say, FMs cannot operate at a level below statutory requirements. That's the minimum standard prescribed by law. And these standards are prescribed to protect human life. You cannot cut corners. You cannot be part of any of such arrangements to endanger the lives of others. The risk of structural failure, accidents, and catastrophic incidents. Some buildings just collapse, suddenly. It's been standing, and then suddenly it collapses, due to some, water table rising, vibration, wind, all kinds of things, or even activities, far away that cause earth movement or even minor tremor. The building comes down. It's coming down not because of those events, because it should have been designed and built to withstand external impacts. And sometimes it can come down because of the activities and the loads that have been introduced, and that can be a problem. And that means that it is possible for you, the FM, to be the guilty party in a building collapse. Maybe we've not thought about that before. A building that was designed for certain purpose and certain load levels, both dead and live loads, you must comply because that's what it has been built for. It's better to enforce that and ensure that your work does not create extra load that the building cannot carry. Because if it fails, you have failed. There'll be all kinds of investigation to decide who made the wrong decisions, whether it was the designers, construction team, the builders, or the FM. But at the end of the day, a disaster would have happened under your watch, and that's what you don't want to happen. So to first exonerate the builders and designers, you do the test when you're taking over. So you have a document to show it's structurally sound for XYZ purpose. Then you enforce that compliance to ensure that it's XYZ purpose that is being used for. The volume, number, quantity of people and activities should reflect what you have checked that the building can carry. And then there's also that aspect of premature deterioration and costly damage. If you don't comply, you do not carry out regular maintenance. For example, one thing that's very common in Lagos is somebody's bathtub is leaking from the drain in the floor above. That person does not feel any impact of that bathtub leaking from the drain because it is the ceiling of the person below him that the thing is affecting. So when the person below gets up to say, water is seeping from your apartment, he doesn't feel so concerned. He doesn't even feel the need to invest in the fix. But you as facility manager must be able to ensure that there is enforcement. If there's a leak from the flat up there, your estate ordinance or estate rules should already dictate how long the person living in that apartment should be given. If he doesn't do it, you as the FM will go and fix it and build that to that individual because some people are just not caring. It is not just the inconvenience of the man down that's feeling the moisture, his POP is collapsing on him and all that. That is the biggest problem. The biggest problem with such seepage being left unattended to is that you are weakening the structure of the entire facility. So you take care of that. You take care of molds. You take care of that causes illness. You take care of cracks that come out of seepage and so on and so forth. And then compliance supports safe occupancy, insurance coverage, and long-term asset resilience. Just being able to comply with regulations, your maintenance procedures, and take care of the facilities properly will ensure that there is long-term asset resilience. When you go for insurance, property insurance, they usually will come for an inspection. Why do you think they come for an inspection? So that they know how much discount, how to package your premium. If your facility looks sturdy, well built, standard, and is being operated and maintained properly, your premium will be minimized or reduced. But if not, they're going to give you a very high risk approach to billing, which will cost you a lot more. So think about all this when you take over a facility for management. So let's talk about the safety, structural safety codes that applies to our buildings. If you read the building code, you will find aspects that have to do with structure. You have aspects that have to do with moisture and water ingress. You have aspects that have to do with fire safety. A whole lot of provisions are given there. Aspects that have to do with the various permits. When you are building a structure, some people think that once I get my building plan approved, I just go ahead and build it. No, the law requires you to get permits and approvals at different levels. Foundation is done, materials are tested, before you install them. Before you move from there to the other levels, you go and get approvals on a regular basis. These are all prescribed. When you finish building the facility, remember that while you were getting approval to build, you indicated the purpose. Before your building plan is approved for multi-level, multi-story buildings, your structural calculations how you worked and assumptions you use in determining your dead and live loads are considered. They're all corrected and approved. At the end of construction, before occupancy, or just during that process of occupying the facility, the government agencies come again to check to ensure that you have certificates of fitness for purpose. Fire certificates, environmental certification, and covers sewage, covers environmental cleanliness, and your local HSC certification. If you have elevators, that's another certification you need to have in place, and so on and so forth. All of these ensures that there is proper compliance, documentation, and validation, revalidation by not just you, the facility manager, but by third-party groups assigned by regulatory agencies. So you as a facility manager, before you even get into maintenance is our work, we do all the maintenance, there's a lot of compliance you must preview, check through, and ensure that it's in place. Beyond that, that's just stage one. Now you've not handed over the property and you're not managing. At this point, there are minimum requirements for maintenance. If you have a generator, an elevator, you have a sewage plant, water treatment plant, swimming pools, there are minimum requirements for their maintenance. Most of these requirements are defined by original equipment manufacturers, OEMs. They've already stated those. Some of them are defined in the building code, and many are also defined by customer and user requirements. You must understand these three things. The OEMs define, the contractors or builders generate operations and maintenance manual that enriches what the OEM has provided, because when an OEM provides an O&M manual for an air conditioning system, it does not define the route for drains, the routes for electrical installations. It prescribes, but it doesn't define how you virtually build it. So when you are developing your O&M manual, you must enrich it with additional information, drawings that are not in the core equipment manual. So that core equipment manual becomes a part of that O&M manual you've created. So you refer to that. You look at the building code to ensure that there is compliance. For example, there's how much, there's a certain requirement for how many exit doors, when you have so number of people within a meeting room or conference space, how many exit doors to have, depending on the plate square meters of your high rise. How many stairwells and how wide those stairwells should be for certain square meters and occupancy expectation, and then elevators. Also, all of those things are prescribed. And then when you're now working for customers who have preferences, as facility manager, you also need to understand those preferences. Okay, so that you cannot operate below statutory, which is the building code, right? We don't also recommend that you operate below the recommendation of the OEM. Of course, there are some mature way of understanding OEM recommendations, so that when you go predictive maintenance, you can make some modifications, right? But then the owners of the property, the users, will also give you their own standards. You work with these three standards to set up your operations and maintenance program for the facility. So all your routine inspections, all your preventive maintenance scheduling, all of them are based on your understanding of these three sources of truth, these three sources of input. That's the only time you can now say, I am compliant. I'm compliant, statutory, government stipulated by law in the code. I am compliant, OEMs that manufacture it and I bought from them, they told me this is what they recommend. Compliant, I listen to my customers, I know their preferences, and I create my own standards based on my understanding of what the customer requires, or the end users. Now, a typical structure is not seen, it's not visible to the eyes. So if you take a high-rise tower, for example, what you're probably seeing are glazing, curtain walls, cladding, windows, doors, roof, which is the roof covering, and so on and so forth. Those things are not the structure. We call those ones the fabric. You see the fabric. The structure is embedded within the fabric. Even buildings that are not cladded or glazed, but are plastered, what you are seeing is the plastering. Sometimes plastering will have issues. You see those hairlines, cracks all over it, and you're like, oh goodness, this building is down. It doesn't follow. The building might still be solid, and it could just be hairline cracks based on the screening that was done that was not done effectively. So you have to dig in to meet any structural member, starting with foundation, and then walls, and then floors, and then roof slabs and roof frames, steel roof or timber roof frames. They all form parts of the structure. And they are often, in fact, in all cases, are supposed to be fully protected by the building fabric, which comprise of the roof, the cladding, the curtain wall, the glazing, doors, windows, and the other things that cover the foundation underneath the soil. Now, because structural elements are not exposed, all that inspections we do as facility managers do not give us contact with structure. It's very rare to find an FM going to beside the building once a year to go and dig a hole to see what the foundation looks like. Nobody even asks you to do that. Or chip into the wall and crack away the cladding on the wall so that you can see what the wall is like. Or remove your tiles and see what no, you don't see those, right? So you need to schedule routine. At the worst case scenario, 3 years if you can do it annually, preferable, structural testing. And when they come for structural tests, you'll see what they'll do. They will list out all the beams, columns, slabs, load-bearing walls, not all the non-load-bearing partition walls and the rest. That's not part of structure. Those ones are all part of fabric, right? They will list them out and they'll test each one by one. They'll create a spreadsheet of results from those testing. So whatever tool they are using, whether it's sound test, and non-destructive strike test, they have all kinds of testing approaches. They will record what they are reading, and they will form a professional opinion on the stability and strength and the carrying capacity of each structural element, one by one across the building. So while you cannot assess it during your regular inspections and all that, you know that you can rely on empirical data from a structural analysis done by structural engineers. And you can have that on record. Because if for one reason or the other, you've been having overloading in certain section of the facility, that section over time will begin to show a degradation in the readings. You start seeing deviation from readings you used to have before. And if you have other areas where water seepage has been causing damage over time, it could still be looking nice and all, but it's been soaking moisture over time in that area. You will see that damage reflects in those reports that you're generating. So do not take it for granted. Don't think it's too expensive. Even the house that I stay, every few years, I call a structural engineer to come and do analysis. It's just a 2-story building, but I make sure I have on file that this building is structurally sound. It gives you, as a facility manager, an occupant, peace of mind. When the government goes around from street to street, marking buildings up, when they're coming to some streets, you see everybody painting up and plastering their houses and putting all kinds of aluminum facade clads and the rest, hoping that it should look nice enough for them not to be drawn to it. But the truth is, if the structure has a problem, no matter your investment in cladding and cover up, the building will still come down. And when some buildings have defects, structural defects. I've seen many engineers come up with all kinds of solutions. Oh, let's do underpinning, let's do injection into the walls. Let's add additional beams and columns, and let's see how we can prop and. To be honest, more than 80% of the time, those things are just intermediary. They don't last long. They will not give that building its full useful life, and the costs are often very expensive. So if you ask me, I would say if they tested and discovered that the structure has a problem, especially if that structural problem has been traced to the foundation, beams, and columns, please exit that investment. Don't throw good money on top of bad one, because that's what that situation will be. But even structurally sound buildings, over time, they age, they lose strength. And that's why you must, keep your eyes peeled out for the outcome of this structural test on a regular basis. I've talked about how poor maintenance can lead to speedy or quick deterioration, especially if you have, seepage, leakage, unattended to. Just one week of ignoring a leakage can make a significant impact when the next time you do that test. So don't think of this as nobody's complaining, it's not affecting anybody, therefore it's not a big deal. The building itself, the structure is going under the weight of it. So as facility managers, I already said you can't really tell by looking. So these tests have to be done. Okay, so having structural engineers coming with their equipment, set it up, do all the tests and record their readings is the way to understand. So if you are doing, and that's why sometimes we give some facilities, clients a bill for condition assessments, and they look at the bill and this is very expensive. Why should we pay this much? See, facility managers cannot do a detailed level condition assessment on their own. If you take structure, for example, I can't tell by looking at the building. I'm not seeing the structure, right? I need to get these engineers to come and do their tests and give me readings and interpret it for me. If you take air conditioners, if you take generators, anything, by looking at it, what I can see are mostly cosmetic. For example, take generator, you put it on. The sound level I can measure. I can tell the variance from recommended or from optimal. The heat level I can measure. I can tell the variance from the optimal. The emission, I can have experts come in and take sample of the exhaust and then go and do an analysis and tell how bad that engine is. The engine oil can be taken to the lab and be analyzed. So all of these are specialist services that I must pay for to do a proper facility condition assessment. So whenever clients want to do a facility condition assessment, you need to establish at what level, there is a walkthrough level, which is not very deep, not very detailed. But then there is the crawl through level, which is this one. I'm basically using a toothbrush to go through, which means I want to look in depth. I need to see all details. Then I must come as a crew with all specialists. To test a water treatment plant or a borehole, I need to have a lab, scientists analyze the water, the raw and the finished water, in addition to assessing the pumps and the piping and the filters and so on and so forth. So it's a lot of work to do proper condition assessment. But because it costs so much, we can use the signs and symptoms we observe to narrow down the specific areas we need to do deeper work, so that we don't do deep condition assessment, analysis, and testing on virtually everything, which is very expensive. If I don't see any crack on the wall, for example, I probably will pass on getting a structural engineer with all this equipment to come and do a structural test. Because there's just no way a foundation that is failing will not leave some kind of crack. By the way, it is possible to have a perfectly uncracked building having a foundation problem. That's possible. Let me just recount myself quickly. Because right opposite my house, I used to have a building, solid, well built, looked, structurally okay, not a single crack, but over the course of 2 years, the building tilted by 5 degrees. At the end of that 2 years, it was still standing. You could still live in it, you could do whatever. You can tell when you look at it from far that this building is tilted. Right? So that itself was a sign that the foundation was caving in. Structurally sound, but the foundation was, was not a pile foundation, and so could not keep the structure was tilting. So red flags will be picked up and walked on.
They converted it to like a real estate now. So it's like a
now to the job you take. You want to move in, the client says, oh no, I don't want the kitchen in that area. Move it this way. The bedroom is not wide enough. Combine it with the store. And then you come in with sledgehammers. Poof, 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 poof. You're killing down walls. You're creating new things. You are tiling over terrazzos. You are installing heavier windows, and so on and so forth. You're putting all kinds of fancy stuff. Who did the structural analysis on the impacts of what you are bringing on what you are removing? I did a project recently where I needed to create a very large hall from a flat of rooms. So the first thing was take the drawing as it is, take the drawing the way you expect to be, mark out all the walls that needs to leave, identify the ones that are load bearing and the ones that are not load bearing, and then prepare the supports first. Before you take out a load bearing wall, you must prepare the supports to hold the roof or the floor above. All of those calculations were done, and the work was done systematically to the point where there's not a single impact structurally on the building. But I've seen many done where as soon as the job is completed, you start observing sagging of certain roof elements through the ceiling. You start observing cracks in certain walls because more load has now been placed on them through reinforcement you've done across within the roof and so on and so forth. And these things can become a problem. When you are building, take for example, you are doing all this remodeling and cracking and building up, you create all these supports, props, scaffolding that holds the floors and everything. It will hold it while the construction is ongoing. By the time you finish all your work and you take out all of those props and scaffolds, the building might over time begin to feel the weight of load-bearing items that were removed. So we cannot, as facility managers, carry on remodeling on our own. You have to bring in the experts, and when you are done with the design, you need to take it back for approval. Don't think that it's only new buildings that you need to take for a plan approval. No, remodelings and renovations also need statutory approval. So you have someone, a neutral person taking a look at all your plans and calculations, picking holes on areas where you don't meet the minimum requirement and recommending changes, gives you that assignment to go back and fix it, and you come back until they say, yeah, this looks good, it's safe now, we can approve it. Until they approve it, you cannot start the work. So it's important that we think about safety for the end users, safety for the workers during space reconfiguration. One area that we often not pay attention to is the fact that Sometimes you are working in a facility that is still being used. Very rarely do you have people just move out, except you want to do complete gutting out to the skeleton. If it's most renovations where they are removing the roof, taking out windows and doors and doing taking off some walls and the rest, some sections of the facility is still in use. So the impact on people, the dust, the smoke and the heat and the chemical exposure. And then consider the structural impacts. That's the first thing that must be done. Load calculations that ensure added equipment or changes do not exceed design limits. Even the load that is being introduced temporarily for the work, welding machines, jackhammers, cutting machines, and the rest, need to be considered as part of these calculations. Documentation, reporting, and corrective action. Accurate documentation records inspection results, maintenance activities, and compliance checks. Timely reporting communicates potential risk and structural concerns to relevant stakeholders. Corrective actions address identified issues promptly to prevent escalation or failure. Maintaining a clear audit trail supports regulatory compliance and accountability. Regular reviews of reports and corrective measures ensures continuous improvement in structural safety. In a nutshell, everything you do in a facility must be documented. Every maintenance activity, every repair, every correction that you do must be documented. If you have a preventive maintenance schedule, this is something that I see very commonly in facilities where there's a preventive maintenance schedule, but there's no reporting system on that preventive maintenance schedule. Let me explain this. Most preventive maintenance schedule will have this color coding: green for done, red for not done, right? So you create this schedule and then you start using colors to mark it. And someone can come in there and pick that same schedule and color everything green and say, oh yes, we did everything. How do I trust such documentation? For every maintenance activity that's in that schedule, I need to have a work order. What does the work order do? Is it defines the scope of that activity, it specifies the materials, the person who executes, the time it takes to execute, and sometimes the cost of the execution. It also allows for a receiver or a user to validate that, yes, I observed that this work was done, and probably put a survey, how satisfied I am that that work has been done. So that documentation, nowadays, you don't even need to have it on paper. You can have it in your software, the CMS software, where the maintenance schedule is there and work orders are being generated on a daily basis. All that is being scheduled for today. By the time you get to the office by 7 or 8 in the morning, all the work orders have been generated. And if you have people pre-assigned to certain types of work, they have already been assigned the work by that work order, right? When they go to execute it, all they need to do is click open that work order and then populate. I arrived at this time, it's how long it took me, this is what I did, and so on and so forth. You can also include in the worker some kind of guidelines, like a statement of work, safe work method statement that defines step by step how they should do. And you can include a checklist where they can tick that, yes, we did these processes. That creates a record that goes with the executor's signature, digital or otherwise, into the system, and the receiver's signature, I accept they did this job. That creates an audit trail. So if I were to go into that kind of system to download all the work, all the reports of what has been done, I will be seeing actual work done. And for sites where you don't have a computerized maintenance management system, it's also good. Make sure that you have the papers produced. All those templates are filled out and there must be evidence for a certain period of time. to show that you are actually, you're not just doing, but you have evidence that you're doing. Because when risk occurs, all investigation is geared towards finding out if you complied with instructions from those three sources: the building code, OEM specifications, and the owners or users standards. That's the first thing to do. And if you don't have documentation, you don't have any cover. So I work very hard, and you say you work very hard. I come to your site, ask a few questions, and I find you wanting. All that talk, if it doesn't translate to data that I can use, I can't give you any credit for the work you're doing. As facility managers, you will be visited by regulators every now and then. Safety authorities, water, sewage. There are so many authorities for different things. If you're in Lagos, for example, you should be talking about 15 different agencies that regulates our built environment. All of their regulation distills into the work of the facility manager. Why? The builders have quite a few that trace and monitor them, but all documentation that comes from all that process lands for you as the knowledge you need to have when you are taking over the management. And then most of the orders, from waste, from diesel storage, from underground tanks, from overhead tanks, all kinds of fire and all kinds of safety issues, there are documentation to be used to back your compliance. You don't have those documentation. An incident occurred once where an agency showed up and said, your generator is polluting the environment. The facility manager looked around and like, no, it can't be my gen. My gen is even very good. Most of that people's gen around is bad. The agency went ahead, produced a very hefty fine to the FM. And when I was going to the matter, I said, where is your effluent, your generator fumes lab result? Have you done it at all in the last 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? None. That is the basis for your response to that agency. Oh, look at the lab tests. Or what's common in Lagos nowadays, where agencies will just come to your estate and shut your estate down, shut down the office, and say you're contravening sewage, your sewage is pumping into the public drain without treatment, without processing. And you say, oh no, we have a treatment plant, we have this, we have that. But have you at any point in time done an analysis, taking a sample of the liquid or water you are releasing into the drain, tested it, and have on file that this is what I'm giving out? But if you don't have cover. They can do anything at that point. What do some of us do? When they are coming, we start creating all kinds of, staged resistance. We're not around and trying to put them back. It's better you are their friends. It's better you have a good working relationship with them, because then you will learn things that are more critical. Sometimes they want to give you a penalty or a fine. And because you don't know what normally constitutes how they estimate these fines and penalties, you will be landed something very large that you don't even know how to defend or get away from. And in some cases, it's the information you provide to them innocently that helps them to evaluate and give you this kind of heavy penalties. Whereas if you are in touch with them, you will learn a lot. You will avoid the penalties altogether or pay very little if you've been in default. And as facility managers, we must understand that if your structure is not sound, everything else you are building under, everything else you put in all your operations is at risk. Okay, so that's one big consideration you should have. Some people have overhead tanks on top of the building on the slab, and it's always soaking. It's not just the apartments under it that suffer. The entire building is at risk. Okay, water supply is at risk. Everything else is also at risk. And in some cases, you have lines running through, ducted chambers or tunnels that water is seeping into. Shock and all kinds of electrical hazards is what you're joking with or playing with at that point. So in essence, we cannot manage a facility that is not structurally sound. In fact, we shouldn't be found around it, let alone found in it and being the one responsible for it. On the final note, let safety, a safety-driven FM culture, be the guiding philosophy of you and your team. A mindset where safety is prioritized in every decision and action. No shortcuts. Regular orientation, training, awareness sessions for all team members. And then ensure that inspections are not reactive. It's not, oh, I'm supposed something is there, let's go and inspect. No, inspection should be proactive, on the schedule. If team members are proactively being safety conscious, picking up unsafe acts and unsafe conditions and acting towards resolving them, ensure that they are recognized. Such good behaviors need to be recognized to entrench it and make it permanent in your team. So that's our session for today. Code compliance is non-negotiable. Facility managers, we need to pay attention to commission assessments and deal with all the issues that we encounter before we take over, during when we are running their facility, and our entire tenure. Even when we are handing over that facility to someone else to manage, we must ensure that we have all that should be in place for that person taking over to be able to manage it successfully going forward. So that's our session for today. I hope you picked something you can immediately go check and do in your facility right away, because the whole essence of learning is that you can pick something and act on it, okay? All right, so I have about 5 minutes. I can take a couple of questions. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Paul.
Good afternoon.
This is Mrs. Adegoke speaking.
Oh yeah, welcome.
Thank you, sir. Just a quick question. In your experience, how do you deal with renovating buildings that do not have as-built drawings, particularly old ones?
Yeah, so we'll reverse engineer the process. We need to first...
Well, I'm here. Let me answer.
Okay, go ahead. Our faculty member is here. Go ahead.
Okay, for buildings that do not have drawings, you will have to, like he tried to say, you do reverse engineering. You do as-built drawings, and it must be as detailed as possible to be able to capture the existing facilities, all the changes that has been done, and a non-destructive test is non-negotiable for renovation works. So you are assured of the integrity of the structure, to know the structural elements of the building and the state they are before you can start your renovation work. Some people run blindly, and that's why you have collapsed building when you're doing renovations. Once you have done the non-destructive test, that's the NDT, it captures the structural integrity of the building. There's normally a report. In fact, right now in Lagos State, it's mandatory that you do it, and a certified engineer will sign off that report that the building is still in good shape for you to do that renovation, and because of building collapse. So once that is done, the as-built drawings are detailed enough, then you can now begin to, in fact, that is the base point you can start from before the renovation starts. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Sure. Yes, go ahead. Okay.
I was just thanking you. Thank you very much.
Okay,
I just wanted to ask, I just wanted to know maybe there was something more that is done outside that.
Yeah. Before now, people just think that it's the builders that are responsible for building collapse, right? FM don't see themselves as, guilty when it comes to what contributes to building collapse. And I just try to create that balance in this session. Issues can come from design, can come from construction, can also come from non-compliance during operations and maintenance. Okay, so thank you so much for being here. Look forward to seeing you at the next episode on the 8th of January. Have a wonderful New Year and Christmas. Yes, somebody's just asking a question about the agencies. I will drop a spreadsheet that I have, analyzed, itemized the most common agencies that you will need to deal with in Lagos in our facility management WhatsApp group and the Telegram group. I'll do that tonight. I'm rushing off to the handover site now. So talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
Bye-bye.